Victoria's government had just released its new 2025-26 state budget, and to be honest, it's disappointing. Once again, it sends more money to low-income earners and throws billions into infrastructure, but at the cost of mortgaging the state's future and pushing property investors out the door. This budget shows that the Victorian government has become addicted to collecting taxes from the property sector, and if this trend continues, it could destroy the entire housing market. In this video, I'll walk you through the key points of this budget. First, the cost of living measures and infrastructure plans. Then I'll dive into what all this means, the positives and negatives for property investors. Finally, we'll look at the long-term economic outlook and where Victoria's property market is headed. So for those of you thinking about buying a property in Victoria, you know what you're facing and how to prepare. Hi, I'm Alex. I hold a master's degree in accounting and have worked as an accountant. I've been a property investor and stock investor for years. Then I started my own company helping hundreds of people invest in the property market to achieve financial freedom and retire early. And you're watching O's Property Strategy, where I share information about real estate investment, economic trends, and wealth creation. If you like this video, smash the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to watch new weekly videos. Without further ado, let's get into it. Let's get straight to the point. What does the 2025-26 Victorian budget mean for ordinary people and for property investors? This year, the government's primary focus is tackling the cost of living crisis and family welfare. Many sectors are receiving increased funding. Here are the key takeaways on living expenses. Number one, if you have a concession card, you get a $100 electricity rebate, a total funding pool of $50 million. Number two, there's $30 million to promote electric heat pumps for cooling and heating and to encourage the installation of solar panels. Number three, all public transport in Victoria will be free for residents under 18 and free for seniors on weekends, year-round across the entire state. According to the government, this could save the average family up to $700 per year. Number four, for families with young children, free kindy for 3 and 4-year-olds. Currently capped at 15 hours per week, this will gradually expand to 30 hours per week. But there's a catch. The rollout of totally free public school education in Victoria is now delayed until 2031. Now let's talk about healthcare. This year, the state is investing $11.1 billion into the health system, nearly one-third of the total budget. This includes funding for new hospitals and a change that allows you to get prescriptions directly from the pharmacists. No more expensive GP visits required. In this year, two major projects are finally wrapping up. One, the West Gate Tunnel, making westbound commutes from the city faster and smoother. Two, the Metro Tunnel, linking the Sunbury and Pakenham lines beneath the CBD, easing congestion on Melbourne's inner-city loop. The design even includes a future connection to the airport rail line. But here's the catch. These two projects have already blown their budgets by $3.3 billion, and it's unclear how much more they'll go over by the time they are done. And what about the Melbourne Airport rail link? The rebuild of the Sunshine Station is still burning a lot of cash. The state and federal government are each supposed to contribute $5 billion for a total budget of $10 billion, with a projected completion date in 2029. But now it's already $3 billion over budget, and the timeline has been pushed back to 2033. At this rate, Melbourne residents probably won't be catching a train to the airport for another decade. And lastly, let's talk about the suburban rail loop, the infamous second metro rail. When it was first proposed in 2018, the budget was $50 billion. Now it's ballooned to $100 billion. The east section might be done by 2035, the north section by 2043, and the full loop by 2053. But so far, we've seen massive cost blowouts and constant delays on every single milestone. Honestly, the way things are going, I might be retired before this thing is even finished. This time, there's only one policy that directly relates to the property market: stamp duty concession. There are actually a few types of government support available for first-home buyers in Victoria. Number one, first home owner grant, a one-off payment for first-home buyers. Number two, first-home buyer duty exemption, concession or reduction, a discount or full exemption on stamp duty. Then came policy number three. On October 21st, 2024, Victoria introduced a new scheme, temporary off-the-plan duty concession. This policy applies to off-the-plan purchases, that is, buying new properties like apartments or townhouses under strata title between October 21st, 2024 and October 20th, 2025. It does not apply to second-hand properties or house and land packages. What makes this policy truly generous is that it applies to everyone, whether you're buying to live in or to invest, whether you're buying as an individual, a company, or through a trust. And it doesn't even require you to be a first-home buyer. There's no price cap either. And now policy number four. In this budget, the government has decided to extend this temporary stamp duty concession for another 12 months until October 20th, 2026. More people will now have a chance to get into the property market. But after throwing out all this money, here comes the big question. Where's the money from? Some say, don't Victoria just get 3.7 billion in GST revenue from the federal government? That's right, even though GST is divided among all states, somehow Victoria ended up getting the most. So Australians from every state are now subsidizing Victoria. And that federal handout? You guessed it, this budget alone used it all up. But even that wasn't enough. To cut costs, the government is also laying off government employees. And even with all that, Victoria's financial situation is still heading downhill. According to their own projections in the budget, Victoria's net debt is expected to rise every year from 155 billion today to 194 billion by 2028. At the same time, the unemployment rate will go up and the population growth will slow down. Back in 2020, Victoria's credit rating was downgraded by S&P from AAA to AA. At the current pace of debt accumulation, another downgrade is expected by 2029. Now, what does a credit downgrade mean? It means that the state will need to offer higher interest rates to issue debt because investors see it as riskier. And who pays those interest costs? Victorians do. And now with GST redistribution, basically all Australians are helping with the bill. Some people may ask, why you always criticize the Victorian government in your video? You live in Sydney, not in Melbourne. What's it got to do with you? Well, honestly, if Victoria wasn't reaching into my pocket to take my money, I'd love to stay out of it. So this Victorian budget continues the same pattern, spending spree first and figuring out the money later. Where does that money come from? More taxes, more debt, more handouts from the federal government, meaning every Australian. The problem is I don't see any real measures in this budget that would actually help Victoria's economy grow. So the question is, where is Victoria's economy headed? Where's the property market going? Most importantly, what should we property investors do about it? Let's dive deeper on this topic. While everyone's attention was focused on the budget, we've all overlooked something quietly passed in Victoria's Parliament, a new tax set to take effect on July the 1st called the Emergency Services Levy. This tax applies to all properties, including farmland, commercial properties, and residential homes. It replaces the previous Fire Services Levy. But just how nasty is this new tax? Starting July the 1st, 2025, your property's council rates notice, the one that shows your capital improved value, CIV, will now include a base charge of $130 plus a variable rate. For every $10,000 in CIV, the charge is $1.73, a 100% increase. And that's just for residential properties. For commercial land, it's $13.30 per $10,000, also up 100%. And for farmland, a whopping 150% increase. This isn't the only one. Victoria has already introduced a 10-year Victoria-era surcharge on all properties, an expanded vacant property tax, a sharply lowered land tax threshold, now just $50,000 compared to $1.07 million in New South Wales. So even if you receive a bit of a discount when you buy, once you own a property in Victoria, the annual taxes just keep growing and getting more complex. The Property Council recently published an article on the budget. The real estate sector has hoped for a breather. Instead, it got slammed in the face. Even the government admitted it had fallen behind on its housing targets by over 20,000 homes. Yet in the budget, there's not a single meaningful measure to fix this. No land release, no planning reform, no tax cuts, nothing. What's worse is the total government fees, stamp duties, and developer charges now account for 43% of a new home's price. You heard that right? Almost half of the price isn't going to the developer or builder, it's going straight to the government. Yes, the extension of stamp duty concessions for off-the-plan apartments and townhouses is a small win for buyers, but for the overall market, it's not much of a help. Developers want more business, buyers want to enter, and investors want to build a portfolio. But this high-tax, high-barrier environment blocks all of it. Due to punishing policies targeting overseas buyers, Victoria has lost out on over 80,000 new homes, shrank the economy by 93 billion, and cost over 90,000 local jobs. The problem of the housing market isn't the lack of interest, it's death by taxation. A partner at a top Melbourne accounting, audit, and corporate advisory firm offered his professional take. And from a business and tax perspective, it's brutal. What shocked him most was Victoria's government is still relying on property taxes to dig itself out. The budget clearly shows that any hope of financial recovery rests almost entirely on rising house prices, which the government believes will drive higher tax revenue. But how does that even make sense? On the one hand, they raise taxes, set restrictions, and create a chaotic environment. And on the other hand, they hope house prices go up and the market booms. According to the budget, Victoria now has 33 separate state-level taxes, 18 of which are directly tied to real estate ownership, transactions, or investment. This makes the tax system incredibly complex and damages Victoria's reputation as an investment destination. Even small businesses that managed to survive the pandemic are now being crushed by a double blow: land tax and payroll tax. So what's left? Lost opportunities and constrained housing stock. In the middle of a nationwide housing crisis, Victoria's entire housing budget is just $407 million. That's not even close to meeting demand, let alone kickstarting new supply at scale. And the $61 million stamp duty concession extension for off-the-plan homes, it looks nice, but in reality, it's just a way to help developers clear stock. It's not enough to encourage new projects to begin. Looking at tax policy across the country, Victoria now ranks as the least competitive state, and the blows keep coming. The budget announces that from 2026, the congestion levy will be significantly increased, and the zones where it applies will expand. That's another gut punch for small businesses and investors in Melbourne's CBD. So where does all this leave us? What's next for Victoria's property market? Let me share my personal view, and feel free to comment below if you agree or disagree. Given the current supply and demand dynamics, and with stimulus from both fiscal and monetary policy, I believe Melbourne property prices will rise over the next 12 months. But the problem is that holding costs are rising too. And judging by this government's track record, more taxes or even new taxes are likely on the horizon. If other revenue streams dry up, they'll squeeze property owners again. If you're buying a home to live in, well, there's not much you can do. You just have to bite the bullet. The sooner you buy, the better. Prices will only go higher, and so will the cost of holding a property. For property investors, cash flow is becoming more important than ever, especially if you're counting on long-term capital growth. If holding costs keep rising, you need higher rental returns or larger depreciation claims to offset them. Otherwise, your cash flow pressure will only grow. So what can you do? Refinance at lower rates and lower LVR, buy new homes with high depreciation, or consider short-term rentals to boost returns. These strategies can help ease the pressure, allow you to hold longer, and give you a better shot at long-term capital gains. If you made it this far, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and share this with your friends. Turn on the notification bell to watch new weekly videos. And have a good one. Bye.